Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hello everyone, welcome back to the series on the 1985 Cabernet Wagon. In the last video, you saw me rebuild all the front suspension and brakes. In this video, we're going to go to the rear hydraulic self-leveling system, the accumulators, the brakes, the leveling valve rod. We're going to put some axles on there, all the stuff on the rear of the car. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, here's what we got today. Let's see, rear brakes, rebuilt original Mercedes leveling rod, new gaskets and seals in here, new, leveling valve. There's the leveling rod. Here's the new accumulators. And there's the original Mercedes axles. They've been rebuilt by CV Source up in Beaufort, Georgia. Best in the business. Guys, also I want to show you, I got in the engine mounts today, and these are from the Classic Center. Guys, these are like $130 each, but you can see there's the original Mercedes part number. Now, Limforder used to make these, and you can't get the Limforder anymore, but the Classic Center, I specifically asked them, who made these for you? And they said Limforder. So the Limforders were like 20 bucks each. But anyway, now you have to get the one with the Mercedes sticker, which is like, 5 times the cost, whatever that, or, 130 bucks. That's with my discount. But that's because the aftermarket stuff is not the same quality as Limforder. Now, I do notice that Phoebe, they're out of Germany, and they are making these now. So at some point, I'm going to order some Phoebe engine mounts and compare them to the original Mercedes mounts and see if it's the same quality. I say original Mercedes. These are actually made by Limforder. So that'll be in a later video where we put the engine mounts on the car. Anyway, let's go ahead and start on the rear suspension, brakes, and hydraulic system. All right, guys, it's kind of dark under here, but what we're going to do, you can see we have a telescoping jack on the rear diff, and that's because I want to go ahead and remove these axles. And what we're going to have to do is unbolt the diff mount here and then lower the differential up and down in order to get access to the bolts, and take the diff cover off and then raise the diff back up in order to get these axles out of here. And once we have the axles out, we can get access more easily to the accumulators up here. We'll take those out too. So a few steps involved here. But what we'll start with for the axles, first thing you want to do is remove the, I think that's a 13 millimeter bolt that goes into the end of the axle. Remove that from both sides of the car. All right, removing these pretty easy, guys. It's a 13 millimeter, and you just screw it out. Now you want to pay attention. So you have your spacer, your bolt, and your washer. You want to keep those together, and that has disconnected the axle from the hub. You can see there's the axle right down in there. All right, guys, next thing we want to do, see there's the differential. Now if we come up underneath here, there's the mount. Now, also keep in mind, that is not rust, you guys. That is Cosmoline wax. See, they would spray it all back here to prevent rust. That is not rust. Anyway, we want to remove these 13 millimeter bolts on the diff mount, and then that will allow us to lower the diff down and remove the differential cover. And these are all just 13 millimeter, 2 on each side. All right, now the diff is disconnected. Okay, I've moved to the other side. This is a better angle for you guys. Now, with this telescoping jack, I can now lower the differential down. See how it's actually lowering down? It's disconnected from the vehicle up there. And I can lower it down, and then that will allow me to remove all these bolts that go around it, remove this diff cover, and get my C-clips out of here, out of the axle, so I can pull the axles out. So these I think are 14 or 15 millimeter. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like 8 of them. The 2 up top are a little tricky, but let me go ahead and get those out. Yeah, I remember them being an odd size. They're 15 millimeter. Now, all your differential fluid is going to drain out when you open this. So you want to make sure you have a bucket to catch it. Guys, the hard ones to remove are the ones, there we go. There are, let me get this line out of the way. Okay, there's one right there and right there. And those are on the very top. And you can see our diff mount is detached from the car. You got to lower it down to get access to those. And guys, the best way I found to do it is one of these like swivel 3/8 ratchets. And you just have to get up there and take your time. All right, now before I pop the cover off, it's already loose. I'm just gonna go ahead and remove my fill plug and drain plug, and we're gonna drain out as much oil as we can. Ugh. Well, that fluid doesn't look too bad. That has definitely been changed before. There we go. All right. I'll just remove these last couple of bolts and we'll get a rubber mallet and tap right here, and this diff cover will come right off. You simply just hold it right here and we're gonna tap it with a mallet. There we go. And it'll break that seal loose, and there we have there's our differential. And down in there, that's where we have to get the, see if I can spin that around. I'll have to take it out of gear, but that's where the C-clips are that we need to get out of there. Okay, I climbed up and put it in neutral and spun the differential around, and here we go. You can see that little E-clip there? You can see a little tab on the top of it. There's one there, and we can see the other one is right there. We got to pull those out with a pick, and then these axles, that's what holds the axles in. Then we can slide the axles out from both sides and get them out of the car. All right, guys, I think you can see this one right here. Let me see if I can record this. We're gonna grab it and see if we can pull it down where we can get access to it. There it is. All right, now it's gonna come flying out of here. Let's try a little bit bigger hook on here. There we go. There it went. And there we go. There is one of the C-clips or E-clips. Now let me get the one on the other side. All right, that one's right there. Just grab it. There it went. All right, there is the other one. Now those axles are free. All right, guys, what we want to do now is raise the diff all the way up, as high as it will go. Watch right here. You see the axle getting higher? Because that's the angle you have to be at in order to get the axle out. So we're going to go all the way up. All right, I think right there. Now I'm going to get a little wooden block and tap out the axle over here. I'll show you how I do that. There you go. That's just an old broom handle I cut off years ago, and you stick it in the end of the axle. And we're going to tap it out. See it coming out there? All right. There it comes. Oh. And then we can spin it out. There we go. All right. Now this axle, we'll pull it out in between the brake line here. There we go. And there is our axle. Come on. Oh, a little bit more. There we go. All right, there's the old axle, and guys, the boot wasn't ripped all the way through, but you can see there's cracking has started, and we're going to put in a new boot. Now, what's important, over here on this side, you have, let me get my pick here, you have a spacer. See if I can get this thing to come off here for you guys. There it is. It's important that you put this spacer back in with your new axles. Here we go. I always like to, here's my new rebuilt axles here. I've got my spacer. I like to go ahead and just put them on there. That way it's done. Okay, next we can see we get access now, easy access to the accumulator. And there's 3 nuts and one on the back side. I think those are 13 millimeter. And then we undo the line right here and we can get that accumulator out. Now guys, how this accumulator works, there is a diaphragm in there, and this is the hydraulic strut Now, fluid is not compressible. So when you hit a bump, that strut's going to try to compress the hydraulic fluid, but it cannot compress. It shoots in here to the accumulator, and this reservoir is filled up with fluid. But there is a diaphragm right here, and behind that diaphragm, it's charged with nitrogen. So that fluid is going to press up against that diaphragm, and then the nitrogen is compressible. So it's going to compress a little. So when you hit a bump, that allows the fluid to compress by hitting this nitrogen-charged chamber and pressing up against the diaphragm, and that gives you a smooth ride. And what happens, these are a regular service item, that that diaphragm in here, over age, it'll get a leak in it, and your accumulators will no longer have a nitrogen charge, and so you'll have a bumpy ride. So let's go ahead and remove this accumulator. And also, guys, once I get all this out of here, it will allow me to refinish all the original suspension in the semi-gloss black, like it came from the factory, and make it look beautiful again. This is a 17 millimeter, and we're just going to crack this loose over here. Let's see, lefty-loosey. There we go. And we're going to catch that fluid that comes out of there. There you go. It's dripping. That's the hydraulic fluid. Now, guys, we're going to flush all that hydraulic fluid and replace it. So I'm going to let that drain down into my catch can, and then we're going to get the remove the line and the accumulator. All right, got most of the fluid out of there. Now, what's also important, I'm going to remove this banjo bolt here, and we're going to see a crush washer on both sides of the main hydraulic strut line here. So there we go. There's one crush washer, and we take our banjo bolt out. Banjo bolt because it looks like a banjo, but there we go. There's a hole in there, and see, there's a crush washer here and here, and the banjo fitting goes over the hole. There's the banjo fitting, and the hole allows fluid to travel through the bolt. Cool design, huh? That's a very common car design. It's just pretty neat design. All right, next thing we want to do is remove our hard line. Now, this is just like a brake line, same size, 11 millimeter, and you want to use a line wrench so you don't run the risk of stripping this, guys. And you want to take your time here. You want to get a good grip. You don't want to strip your line here. You'll have to make a new line. We can get it on there. Okay, there it is. Now we're going to crack this loose. There you go. Nice. Now we can screw that that hard line out of there. And I'm just going to use an 11 millimeter. There we go. It's just a regular wrench now. And this hard line is actually what goes over to your leveling valve. And we're going to replace the leveling valve next once we get the accumulator done. All right, there we go. Hard line is out of there. Now let's do the 13 millimeters that hold the accumulator in there. All right, these two up front are pretty easy. That's just a 13 millimeter with a washer behind it. There we go. Let's get this one out. All right. Now, keep in mind, guys, the little washer only goes on this side. These two over here, there's one in the back, do not have the washer. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it in the video, this slot is oval shaped. So it gives it a little, it makes it easier to install when you're putting it on there. Okay, let's get the back one out here. Got my extension, and it's probably gonna fall on me. Let's see if I can catch it here. Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. There's our old accumulator, and here is our brand new one. Now, our brand new one is a Cortico. It's made in Germany. This is the original OEM manufacturer that made the ones for Mercedes. Keep in mind, guys, Mercedes never made parts. They always hired companies to make their parts. This is the company that makes the accumulator. You can see right here, I don't know if you can make that out. Made in Germany, and it says 155 bar. That's how much pressure is in here behind that nitrogen chamber. So let's go ahead and get this back in the car. Guys, reinstallation is just the opposite. I went ahead and just put those up there by hand. Now, here's that washer. There we go. You want that washer over here on this side. And we'll torque these down. You don't have to go crazy tight, because what holds them in place are studs that come through the floor. If you crank these down and break those studs, that's going to be a real pain in the butt to repair that from inside the car. You'll have to remove a lot of the interior. So don't go crazy cranking these down. Let's go ahead and tighten them up. All right, I'll finish that off. I'll torque it by hand. All right, guys, you just want to snug these up. There we go. You don't want to over tighten or go crazy. They're not coming out. There we go. All right, that's it. Let me wipe this down, get it all cleaned up, and we'll work on reattaching our hydraulic strut banjo bolt here. All right, guys, here's all my crush washers. You can just order a box of these off Amazon, but when we get the old ones off of here and just match up the size. Now, the internal one's probably going to be crushed on there. See if I can get this one off. There we go. All right, let's see what size we got. It looks like these right here. Get one of those out. Boom. That is the correct size. Yeah, that's it. Here, let's see if I can go ahead and tell you what size. M12 by 16 by 1 millimeter. Yeah, M12 by 16. That's the correct size for the crush washer. Goes right on there. Now we need two, one for the inside and one for the outside. Okay, guys, this is pretty easy to reinstall this line. What you want to do, so first we need to pop off our protective cap on the new accumulator. There we go. Let's get that guy out of here. There we go. Okay, here's our banjo fitting. And we got one crush washer here. We're going to push it through, put the other crush washer here, and then we're going to make sure we thread it by hand. You do not want to cross thread anything back here. So we're going to make sure we feel it going in by hand. There we go. That is now threading by hand. Good. Now we just want to snug it up until those crush washers, you know, will fill them crush. It's a 17 millimeter. There we go. A little bit more. And there we go. Crush. Snug it up a little bit more. Oh, that's it. And of course, we'll check for leaks once we got everything back together. Now we need to go ahead and reattach our hard line. Now keep in mind, guys, this hard line runs across here and it actually connects in right over here to our leveling valve, which we're also going to replace. You can see I have it draining right now through the bleeder. But sometimes it's easier to get that leveling valve on there when this is actually disconnected, because it lets this line, you know, move around a little bit. So I'm actually just going to get the threads started, but I'm not going to tighten them down until we're done installing the leveling valve. All right, beautiful. I got these threads started, and see, I can move them in or out by hand. It's not tightened down yet, and they're absolutely not cross-threaded. So we just have it snug. Now, let's move over to the leveling valve. All right, guys, next we're going to go ahead and remove the leveling valve. First, I want to take the rod off here, and that's just two 10 millimeter nuts that go on here. And there's a little washer down here too, so we'll save that washer. And we'll get the one off up here. And the one on top is a lock nut. The one on bottom is not. That's just a washer. Okay, so the one on top, it's causing the back to spin. So you have to put a little, there you go. You have to put a wrench right on the back side to hold it still. Let me get that. Okay, and see, I got the wrench on the back. It's an 8 millimeter. And then you can get this guy off of here. All right, there we go. And then we'll take off this rod because we're going to replace it. We're putting all new components back here. All right, guys, here's where you want to be careful. Right here, these are 12 millimeter hard lines. Let's see. There we go. You want to get that on there. And first undo the bottom one. There we go. Just want to crack it loose. Because you don't want to strip these or mess these up at all, because there's absolutely no reason to replace them unless you damage them. So we're going to make sure we do not damage them. And a lot of people damage their leveling valve when they're putting all this back together because they cross-thread it. Because especially with these little ones up here, it's an aluminum housing, guys. So when you put those back together, you take extra care to thread it by hand. All right, let me go ahead and get these out, and then we'll move on to these smaller ones up here. Okay, you can see I've gotten these two lines down, undone here. Next, we want to undo, these are the main send and return lines back to your reservoir in the front. Right here are for the accumulators. And these are, I think these were 11, let me check. I think they're 11 millimeter, same as your brakes. Yeah, that's an 11 millimeter. And again, you want to get it on there snug. There you go. And make sure you use a line wrench so you don't strip that. And then we'll get a regular wrench to finish taking it out. Okay, we have all the lines released and the leveling valve rod released. Now we need to undo this nut and this one right here. The other two are actually for holding the leveling valve halves together. You can see this nut here and this nut here actually hold it to the mounting bracket here. So let's undo this and go ahead and remove the valve. And guys, these are 17 millimeter. Get one on there. There we go. There's our bottom one. And let me get the top one off, and then we'll drop this valve out of here. Oh, let's get that nut out of there. There we go. All right, got that valve out of there. Here is our old leveling valve. I'll send that off, have all the seals changed on it, and rebuild it. Once you change all the seals, they're good as new. And here's our leveling valve rod. Now, here's our new rod right here. And the reason I install new rods is because these are just little ball joints. See, that pivots. And just like on this one, the little boot will break, the ball joint boot, just like on regular size ball joints on you know, your steering knuckles. And then these eventually fail and they become loose. So we're putting on a new, genuine Mercedes one. And here is our freshly rebuilt leveling valve. Isn't that beautiful? All right, let's see. There we go. That's how it goes like that. Now, what we want to do is transfer these two fittings from this leveling valve over to here. Those are adapters for the brake lines. That's just how Mercedes did it. They put adapters here. Now, what we also want to do, we want to adjust our new leveling rod to be the exact same length as this one. Let's see, it's going to be, we'll get a wrench and undo these lock nuts here. And to do that adjustment, you can hold the flats here with a 10 millimeter. Then we grab the lock nut. There we go. Break the lock loose. Okay. And let's make this exactly the same length, because we know the ride height was excellent on this car before, and we want the exact same ride height. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. That's it right there. So now I want to put my lock nuts back in place, and we'll tighten those down. There we go. All right, perfect. Let's go get these back on the car. Also, guys, you can see that's genuine Mercedes. That's where I get these from, real Mercedes. And you can't go to the original equipment manufacturer. I don't know who manufactures these, but that information is not available. So in that case, you got to go to Mercedes. Okay, forgot to show you how we remove the those little adapters. First, you want to put your leveling valve in a vise, hold it still. We got to get these brake line adapters off of here. Here we go. Whoops. Here's our top one. And here's our bottom one. And we just got to transfer these to the new leveling valve. And I'm just going to clean up the little adapter fittings real quick in the parts washer. Because they're made out of brass, so when you clean them up, they kind of look nice. Okay, guys, slight change of plans on the leveling valve. I looked over on my shelf, and I still had a new old stock in the box leveling valve that had never been used. I didn't know I had that up there, so I put the rebuilt one back on the shelf, and we're going to put this beautiful new old stock one back in the car. You can it still has all the little plugs and caps from Mercedes. And anyway, so what we want to do now, and these are expensive, guys. I think these are selling for like $750 nowadays. But first we're going to screw in our bleeder valve. You have to transfer your bleeder from the from your old leveling valve along with the you know, the hose fittings. I mean the brake line fittings. And let me pop these caps out here and we'll get those fittings on here. Now remember, the bottom brake line adapter fitting is self-sealing. It does not require a crush washer. That one just screws in there. And we'll go ahead and tighten it down with a 17 millimeter. And remember, it's aluminum, guys, so you just snug it up. You don't go crazy tight. Now the top one requires the new crush washer. See, we have it on there, that copper crush washer. And this one's a fine thread. All right, let's get that in there. We'll tighten that one down. Don't have to go crazy tight. Just wait till you feel your crush washer crush. And there we go. Now, I've already tightened down our, this is an 11 millimeter. That's our bleeder. And this is ready to go back on the car. Okay, so guys, before I put our leveling valve back in here, I want to go ahead and reinstall our axle. I want to take this axle out and I want to put in our new accumulator up here. And I want to take these old brakes off, go ahead and put new brakes on. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the diff cover back on. And we want to stick in, I'm just going to put in the accumulator last. So let's go ahead and get this axle back in here. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead. Put our axle back in here. And remember that little spacer earlier, I'll put it on here. So we're going to slide this thing around our brake line here. Oh, there we go. There we go. Get that back in there. All right. Now I need to just roll the end axle in here and then reattach the C-clip inside the diff housing. All right, guys, once the axle is back in, remember we need to get our C-clip right there on the end of the axle. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a groove right there. And this C-clip snaps right over that groove and it holds the axle in. Let me see if I can record that. Well, guys, it's kind of hard to get the camera up there where you guys can see it, but what I do, I take the C-clip and I put it up there right around the axle where it's supposed to go. And then I take a little brass punch right here. I put it right on the tab. There we go. All right. And there we go. Let me show you. All right, if you look right there, you see my little C-clip. And then to make sure it's in the groove, you want to just move it. See how it rotates around there? There we go, I got a little screwdriver here. And watch this, see how I can rotate it? And that confirms that it's on the groove. Now, let's go ahead and put the other axle. See, there's the end of the other axle. I got to take it out and swap it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll get this axle out, get that accumulator out, replace all that, and then I'll come back. Okay, we have the passenger side axle in and the new accumulator. Got the lines reconnected up here. Now I went ahead and disconnected the brakes, and you can see it's hanging right here. Now guys, the rear brakes weigh like 2 pounds. It's not going to hurt these rear brake hoses to let them hang for a couple of minutes while I change the brakes. So what we're going to do now is take off these old calipers. See, the brake line is brand new. Those were just put on there. That was done by the previous owner, so we don't need new brake lines back here, but that's the original 40-year-old caliper. So let's go ahead, get that off of here, and get on our new calipers. There we go. There we go. All right, now that that's loose, we can spin off that old caliper. All right. Now, there is our brand new ATE caliper, brand new out of the box. Let's just spin this on. I don't like using the remanufactured one. Guys, these cost hundreds of dollars per side, but you're basically guaranteed to have a excellent, perfect working caliper. Those remanufactured ones, like 1 out of every 3 leak. So I don't like to use those. All right, now, see how that line is crimped like that? What we want to do is once we get it up here, we're going to break it loose up here and untwist the line before we bolt everything down. Now, these rotors, those are new. These rotors, I mean, probably only have a few hundred miles on them. So I'm just going to stick that guy back up here. There we go. And we'll put some, we get all new hardware that comes with the ATE calipers. So we're just going to put that up here and get the bolts started, and then get the twist out of our rear brake line. This is just an 11 millimeter up here. So let's crack this guy loose. There we go. All right, once we get this one loose up here, here we go. We can take a 14 millimeter and we can spin. See, we want to get the twist out of here. So we're going to spin this one. There we go. There we go. See how that twist gets out of there? See how it's a nice, smooth curve? That's how you want your brake lines. You don't want them twisted. I see so many amateur mechanics putting these things on here and have them all twisted up, and that will cause premature failure. So now let's tighten this one down here. There we go. And once that one's tightened, let me get this exactly how I want it. There we go. I want it right like that. And then we're going to tighten the one up top. There we go. Perfect. Now let's torque the bolts down on the back and get our new pads in here. There we go. Click. There we go. Click. All right, putting the pads in, pretty easy. We just slip them down in here. There we go. Now, ATE provides all new brake hardware. When you get a set of their calipers, you get the new mounting or retaining clip and the 2 pins with the crush washers on the end that holds them in there. So we'll put this guy, see, right there, and we'll stick one of these through here and here like that. Stick our other one right through there like that. And then you just have to tap these in with a punch. And we punch those guys through there. And there you go. Brake installed. So, like I said, the rotor's already new, but there's a new brake hose, caliper, pads. Now also, we want to put back in our axle retaining bolt. And remember, that just slides down here. Remember, we have the spacer, the bolt, and the washer. And slide that down in here, and we'll get it started. And then we'll tighten that down with a 13 millimeter. And you just have to snug it up, guys. Don't have to go crazy there. All right, we're done with this side. Let me knock out the other side, and then I'll show you when I'm done. All right, done over here on the passenger side. You can see everything is starting to look new underneath here. And next, what we need to do is install our differential cover. Now, what I want to do, I want to clean up around here with some acetone. I'll get it nice and dry. And then we want to come over here and we want to put our diff cover in the parts washer and clean it up and then reinstall it. Now what I'll do is, here's our diff cover. I'll clean it up in the parts washer, and then we'll take a razor blade and just go around here and make sure it's nice and smooth. You can see there's some of the original sealant that Mercedes used. It's like this clear yellow looking epoxy. That's what they would put on there. We're going to put some modern RTV on there, and that works excellent. So let's go ahead, get it in the parts washer. All right, guys, I'm just hitting this with some acetone. Acetone is a solvent, pretty strong solvent. And this will get it super dry, remove any oils or grease from here before we put back on our cover. All right, there we go. All right, back to the parts washer. All right, what I'm gonna do first before we put this in the parts washer, I'm just gonna scrape down here and make sure we have a good smooth surface. All right, that's good. Now let's get her in the parts washer, get this diff cover cleaned up. Now we'll just dry everything off, and I might hit this with another coat of black semi-gloss paint. You can see it's aluminum. It's an aluminum diff cover, and the paint always wears off here from when they do differential service. Your fluid drains out right here, and it always makes the paint come off. So we'll hit this with a little black paint, make it beautiful again. All right, I've got it cleaned off with acetone, and it's all dry. Let's hit it with some semi-gloss black paint again, and it'll make it look nice. All right, we'll let that dry. And then we'll get that back up on the car. Okay, now we want to take some gasket sealant here, and we're going to do a light coat. We'll smear it all the way around. This is just RTV. I like using it's Permatex black. I'm sorry, Permatex gray. All right, we'll just rub that in around here. Make a nice even coat. This will never leak a drop. All right, there we go. Now let's go put this back up on the differential. All right, we're gonna get this around here. There we go. Get it lined up there. Now I'm gonna put 2 bolts right here at the bottom just to hold things in place. And then I have to go around and put the rest in and then torque them down. So that's going to take me a minute, but I'll be back when I'm finished. Okay guys, we have our diff cover reinstalled, and you see that little gray bead of silicone that squirts out? Guys, don't wipe that away. So as a mechanic, when I see that on here, if I get a car in the shop and I see a little gray bead of silicone around here, I know that someone has removed this cover and serviced the differential. So I like to leave that little gray bead that squishes out for the next guy that has to service the car. And when he sees this, he'll be like, oh, this diff has been serviced. I don't need to do anything here. So anyway, next what we want to do is lift the diff up. So I'm going to turn our telescoping jack here, and our mount is going to press right back up there. See, the blue Loctite is still left in there from 1985. You can see. So we're going to reapply blue Loctite to the bolts and then remount our diff cover. And this will raise it right back to where it's supposed to be. There we go. If we look up there, our bolt holes, there we go. Should line up perfect. All right, let me go ahead and get those bolts, and we'll get a little blue Loctite. Let's see, here they are right here. And we need to reapply some blue Loctite and put these back in here. All right, there we go. Now let's get these reinstalled. Boy, it's starting to look nice in here, isn't it? Look at the new accumulators, new axles. I've cleaned everything up, repainted the diff housing. Now, I like to get these started by hand because you don't want to cross thread or screw these up. So I like to go ahead. Let's try this one over here. There we go. We'll go ahead and get it started by hand. All right, there we go. Now, let's go ahead and do the other ones, and then we'll torque them down. Now again, guys, what you're seeing up here, that's not rust. That's the original yellow cosmoline wax that Mercedes would spray underneath here to keep things from rusting. Well, we want to go ahead, torque these down. I'll snug these up, and then I'm going to go over to the other side, snug them up, and then I'll torque all of them. Okay, we have our diff mount retorqued. Now I can take off our jack here, and the diff is now held back up in place. Okay, the last two items we need to install are the new sway bar end links. So let me go ahead and remove the old ones. These are pretty easy to install. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, right up in here, you see this, this right here is a 17 millimeter. I'll see if I can do this one-handed, you guys. Let me get that up there. See if we can crack that loose. Okay, I can't do it with one hand because I need to put another 17 millimeter right back here to hold it, keep it from spinning. So we'll take that one off, and then, let me take this off, I'll show you around the back side. On the back here, okay, there you go. See right here, it attaches to the hub, and there we go. You can get our 17 millimeter in there, and see if I can crack that loose. There we go. And then we can just spin this out of the hub. So let me go ahead, remove this, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, we have our old sway bar end links out of here. Let me show you why I like to replace these. So see right here, there we go. See how this, see that deteriorated boot? And down in here, you have a little ball joint. Yeah, see? So when that boot deteriorates, you can see how much dirt and gunk has got down in there. That will eventually break at the ball joint, or these things will just snap here. And that's usually what happens. They're just, with age, they just break in half. But you can see on the replacements, see how that boot is there, and you can see, see the grease down in there to keep it lubricated. Anyway, that's why we're replacing them. So let's go ahead and get these new ones back on the car. All right, there we go. Fresh sway bar end link. And we got one over here too. There we go. All right, guys, starting to look really nice under here. New brakes, hoses. There's our sway bar end links. New axles, new accumulator. Refinished the differential housing and resealed that. Next, we need to put our leveling valve in. And you can see I've already got the new rod up here. We need to attach that to the leveling valve. Let's go ahead and get that installed. All right, guys, it's the next day, and it doesn't get better than that. Brand new leveling valve, got the new leveling rod in there, and now we need to go ahead and fill the system with some fresh hydraulic fluid and let the system self-bleed. And we also need to put some 80W90 here in the differential, and then we will test out our new leveling valve. For the diff fluid, just use regular old 80W90 gear oil, old dinosaur gear oil. Don't do anything special back here. And it takes about a full quart, and you go ahead, we'll fill it up here through the fill hole, and as soon as it starts coming out of the fill hole, that means it's full. So let's go ahead and get this pumped in here. Okay, I just put a little Teflon tape around my plug here. Not necessary, but you know, this is a pipe thread, and you know, pipe thread, it's always good to put a little Teflon tape or sealant on there. We'll tighten down this, and then we'll go ahead and fill it back up. And like I said, you just fill it up until it comes out of the fill hole. There we go. See how it started to come out there? That means we're full. So we'll just pull our out of there and put our fill plug back in with our crush washer. All right, let me tighten that down, wipe it off, and we'll be done here. All right, let's go fill back our SLS system with some fresh hydraulic fluid. All right, guys, up here on the driver's side of the engine compartment, you have your hydraulic fluid reservoir for the self-leveling hydraulic suspension. Now, the lines are empty. We drained it all out when we were changing, and we let it all drip out of the back. But you can see in the reservoir, all this, I don't know when the fluid was changed last, but so we want to get all this fluid out of here. And we also want to remove this cap and change the filter. That's very important. Very few people ever do this. And you just put a, let's see, this is a 12 millimeter. Now this is the line that pumps it to the, I think this is the return line. And we're going to just undo this. There we go. Whoops, thought I got it. Okay, there we go. We'll screw that off there. Now this cap unscrews. Let me get a rag so I can get some grip on it. There we go. And here we have, yeah, that's an old original filter. So I've got a new one on order. It should be here this afternoon. Let's go ahead and change that. In the meantime, we want to suck out all this old hydraulic fluid. And I'm just going to turn on the extractor, and we're going to suck all that fluid out of there. Yeah, that hadn't been changed in a long time. It's black. So we're going to flush all this, get all this out of here, and put all new fresh fluid and fresh filter. That way, the first time we crank the car and it goes to self-bleed, it's going to get all fresh fluid through our new parts back there. So you can't use just any fluid. Phoebe, you know, Phoebe Bilstein, they make the hydraulic fluid, and you have to use the correct stuff. You can't just put in regular oil or hydraulic fluid. This is specially designed for this system. It takes about 3 of them, sometimes 2.5. So let's fill up the system. All right, let's get all this in here. There we go. So it takes about 2.5. Now, right here, you actually have a dipstick. This comes out, and it tells you the max and min levels. And you have to, I think you have to check this while it's running. But let's see where we're at now. Okay, we're right down here at the min level, but of course, this will change once we crank it up. All right, guys, these filters have the weirdest mechanism for attaching them. Basically, it's spring loaded. And if you push down on the spring and then tilt the cap will come off, and then the filter can lift off here. There's our little, looks like a little oil filter. But in the cap, see there's a little hole right there that the spring hooks through, and that's what holds it together. All right, guys, here is the replacement filter, part number 002-184-5501, and I just picked that up at the Mercedes dealer. They're like 15 bucks. And there you go. You can see our nice new one compared to the dirty old one. So to put these in, oh, check it out. That's cool. Made in Austria. That's pretty neat. But you just stick it through there. And basically you compress it, right? And you see our hook comes up through the top. And then you have to hook in the cap. And there we go. That's how you get that in there. Kind of a strange design, but it works really well. Let's go ahead and put this back on the car. All right, we'll just stick that back down in here. We got all fresh fluid. We extracted any old fluid that was in there and then put all fresh fluid in. And I'll tighten down our cap here. Let's see, let's get it straight on here. And this is like a flare fitting. It fits on just like a brake line. And we'll go ahead and tighten that back down there. And I'll get the wrenches, snug it up, and we're good. All right, just wipe everything down. Okay, guys, we are ready to test out our freshly rebuilt SLS system. Now, to do that, I'm going to have to put the wheels back on the car because we want to put the car down on ramps so we can crawl underneath it and watch the car raise up and down. But I need to bleed the brake system before I put the wheels back on. So let me knock that out real quick. All right, guys, I've already refilled our reservoir with fresh brake fluid, and this is a Motive Products. It is a power bleeder, and basically allows me to connect the cap to the reservoir, and then I can pressurize it to like 10 psi, and then I can go crack the bleeders at each brake caliper and bleed the air out of the system. So I'll just show you how we do one. You guys have probably seen me do this before. So I'll just there we go. That's 10 psi. So I'll just set that there, and now let's go bleed the brakes. All right, guys, this is pretty simple when you have a pressure bleeder. First, we're going to pop our little protective cap off our brake bleeder here. What we're doing, we're trying to get all the air out of the system because these are all new calipers. And I just have a little cup, that's an old painter's cup with a tube attached to it. And I just attach that tube right on to the bleeder. There we go, like that. And now I'm going to crack this bleeder loose, and I'll try to zoom in so you can see it, but you're going to see the air bubbles come right out of here. Let me get the correct size wrench. Yeah, I'll try to hold the camera so you can see the bubbles here, but we got our wrench. I just want to crack this bleeder. All right, watch. See the bubbles? We should see fresh fluid in a second. There we go. Now we have fresh, solid fluid going through there. A couple more bubbles coming out. So now I'll go ahead and I'll just tighten it. Oh, there's another one. So now I'll go ahead and just tighten it back up. And I need to go do that all around the car. And then I got to go in the car, crank it up, press the brake pedal a couple of times to get, any more air bubbles kind of pushed through. And then I'll come back, do that whole process again, and the brakes will be bled with fresh fluid. So I'll knock that out, and then we're going to go back to the SLS, and we're going to test that out to make sure it works correctly. All right, guys, you can see I have the wagon lowered down onto race ramps, and you can see the lift is actually no longer touching the car. Let me show you up here. There we go. So we have it on the race ramps, and it is fully supported on its own suspension. You can see the lift is, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches away from the car. So we got full suspension travel. All right, guys, so it's time to test the SLS system. So what we want to do, crank the car, and then off camera, I'll let it run for a minute to make sure the fluid starts pumping. I'll give it a little RPMs or so, just to get the pump on the front of the engine, pumping that fresh hydraulic fluid back to the valve. And then after a couple of minutes, we're going to go under the car and I'm going to disconnect that rod that's on our leveling valve so I can manually move it, and we're going to watch to make sure the car raises up and down. Now, the way this works, this system is designed to work. If you put, I think it's like 300 pounds or 350 pounds, it's an exact number, but if you put like 300 pounds in the back, the wagon will squat down, and that rod is connected to the sway bar. So when the sway bar pushes down on the rod, it moves that lever, and then that lever opens up the leveling valve and lets hydraulic fluid flow into the rear hydraulic struts, and it raises the car back up. So the idea is that if you go to Home Depot and you put 5 bags of potting soil or 5 bags of concrete, whatever, in the back, it's going to squat down, trip that leveling valve, and then it's going to raise back up. So it's self-adjusting or self-leveling system, SLS. So let's go in there and test it out. All right, let's go in here and fire up the car. Get our glow plugs to, oop, there's the glow plugs. All right, there we go. Man, that fired right up, didn't it? Okay, let's go underneath the car. Okay guys, here we are under the car. Now, I've temporarily undone our little nut here so I can manually operate this leveling valve. So let's take this off of here. All right, right now the car is level. Now, what you can see, what I want you to watch here, this exhaust is connected to the car, but the axle is stationary. So if I raise this valve, if I raise the car, the exhaust should start raising up above the axle. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to raise the valve, and I want you to watch the axle. See it raising? See the exhaust raising up and exposing the axle boot? There we go. Now guys, the system is not very fast. There we go, look at that. All right, now I'm going to lower the valve. Look at that. Absolutely perfect. All right, we're back down to ride height. All right, let's do that again. All right, our valve is down. We're at ride height. I'm going to raise the valve. There you go. You see it raising up in the air? Guys, that is working excellent. All right, I think that's about max height right there. Let's lower it back down. There we go. All right, now I want to reattach my arm. There we go. That's going to be our ride height. So let me put the nut and bolt back on here, and let's go check our ride height. Oh guys, that is perfect. What you want is a slight rake. You want the front of the car like ever slightly higher, just a little bit, than the back. There's a slight rake. And guys, I think I got that perfect. Let's check our, let's look at our wheel wells. A lot of people make the mistake of jacking the back of the car way up in the air. All right, there we go. See our clearance there? Now if we go back here to the back, I got it perfect, guys. Now a lot of people make the mistake of raising the car up with the back like sits way up in the air and the car's like that. That is not right. You want a slight rake, like, there we go. Ever so slightly. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's just ever so slightly coming back. Like raking, the front is slightly higher than the back and it slowly comes back. And that's about how much gap you want. Guys, we got that sitting absolutely perfect. Now I just want to test if the accumulators are correctly dampening. So what we're going to do, oh yeah, that is good. We're just bouncing the car up and down. That is nice. Guys, that is perfect. I couldn't ask for a better working SLS system. All right, guys, what we're looking for now are leaks. We have 0 leaks over here on the accumulator or the hydraulic strut hose. We have 0 leaks on the leveling valve. And let me check this accumulator over on this side. Okay, there we go. Let's get up underneath here. There we go. Not a single drop. And guys, that is a beautiful sight. All new axles, brakes, accumulators, sway bar end links, repainted the diff, all new leveling valve and leveling valve rod. Look how good all that looks. This is good for the next 100,000 miles or however long. This is all fresh back here. Very proud of all this work. That SLS is working fantastic, super smooth. I got it to raise up like, I don't know, it was like 6 to 8 inches. It really went up there. And then when I pulled it down, it correctly went back down. And the ride height I've got it set up at is perfect. So hope you enjoyed this video. That was the complete rebuild of the rear suspension, axles, brakes. I forgot what else I did in the video. This has been over several days. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. There'll be more videos on this wagon. I think the next one is air conditioner, engine mounts, and transmission cooler hoses. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it, guys. We'll see you next time.